Hi, boys and girls. It's time to read our Appleblossom the Possum. We are on page 55, chapter 8. We have 3 chapters to read today, boys and girls. They are all hungry and there's nothing to do but go look for something to eat. So remember, yesterday when we ended, they were going on their first hunt by themselves. So today we're going to find out what happens when they go on their first hunt. It's exciting. They are all hungry and there's nothing to do but go look for something to eat. Slowly the group starts to break apart. Abdul and Alan head off to investigate the hillside where a group of trees have a sticky bark. It catches flies and unsuspecting gnats. Helandro and Angie and Atticus decide to go dig for a treasure down in the field not far away. They think they smell something rotten buried there under a pile of dead branches. Alfonso announces that he's going to investigate the often stagnant stream by the sycamore trees. He believes it holds the promise of little toads and slimy salamanders. Ajax and Augusta and Alberta look confused as they wander off in different directions. Amlet's tail still has a crimp in the middle from the calamity on the cement path. It causes him to walk with a small hitch in his step. He moves forward a few feet into the darkness, but turns back. He then looks at his brother and sister. I'm not afraid, but I do feel attached to the two of you, especially Appleblossom. Appleblossom nose wrinkles up. Don't pick favorites. Amlet shrugs. Just saying. No offense meant. Antonio mumbles. None taken. Appleblossom grabs her tail and holds it tight. You two go. I'll wait here. Amlet looks at Antonio. Okay, then I'll tag along with you, Antonio. Just to keep you company. But Antonio doesn't answer. A warm wind blows hard from the north. Appleblossom shouldn't be cold, but she feels the hair stand up on her back. Antonio looks right at her and says, Appleblossom, you should come with us. The littlest possum shakes her head. Antonio is more insistent. Please, aren't you hungry? Appleblossom whispers, Antonio, I'm not acting right now. I can't. I just want to stay here. Antonio knows she really means it. He reaches out to reassure her. It isn't clear whether Amlet is performing, but he puts a hand on Appleblossom's shoulder and says, We'll stay close, right, Antonio? We'll be in the wings. We'll be watching. Antonio finally turns to go, whispering, I'm not going to say goodbye because I'm coming back soon. Appleblossom shuts her eyes, but when she opens them moments later, her brothers haven't gone far. Antonio and Amlet are looking back at her from the shadows. Antonio lifts his tail high in the air and makes it sway. Appleblossom pulls herself up onto the hind legs to make herself tall. She raises her right arm and waves back. And Antonio spins around and scurries off into the grass, with Amlet at his heels. Appleblossam's mind races. I'm not ready to put on my own show. The most important thing right now isn't finding something to eat. It's finding a safe place. Cars don't climb trees, and dogs don't do more than jump and snap at lower limbs. People only go up trees when the sun's out and they have tools in their hand, or at least that's what Mama Possum said. Maybe if I climb a tree, I can look down at my brothers and sisters and maybe even see Mama Possum. In the distance, she hears the sound of a car. The glow from the eyes of its beast lights up the world. It motivates her. Appleblossom gathers all of her courage and goes, but she can't see Antonio or Amlet. The grass is too tall. She considers calling out to them, but making noise at night is risky business. So she stays along the edge of the bushes and does not venture out in the wide open space, which is the most dangerous place for any creature to be. Before she knows it, she's at the base of the tree in the yard next to the house. The owl has appeared from the sky and lifted her away for a meal. No dog has ripped off her head. She feels a wave of relief as she scrambles up the trunk into the shelter of the leaves. Appleblossom sharp nails dig into the bark, and her skill surprises her as she ascends towards the crown of the enormous tree. She doesn't stop even once. She might be the smallest of the 8 baby possums, but she's determined, and she has a good balance. Appleblossom climbs higher and higher, passing dozens of branches and even a small hole where she spies the remains of a bird's nest. Finally, she's at the top. Then she wraps her tail around a thin branch for safety. Appleblossom turns her gaze upward. She sees the starry night as a field of tiny lights. On the distant horizon, she locates the blurry edge of an orange moon. As her heart slows and her breathing returns to normal, Appleblossom decides there is only one thing to do when she's afraid to perform. She has to always move forward, even if she feels small and alone in the world and not much of an actor. She has to find a role she can play. Chapter 9, boys and girls. We're on page 63. It turns out there are things to eat up high in the treetops. Appleblossom hears buzzing and looks over at the moth. She has eaten moths before, and while they are often dusty, dry, and bitter to taste, they have a nice crunch. So Appleblossom grabs the insects and pops it in her mouth. And as often happens, she doesn't realize how hungry she is until she starts chewing. She finishes the moth and sees just inches away a slug moving down the tree branch and leaving a trail of thick goo. This is a prize. Appleblossom pulls on the slug. It stretches long and thin, but she is stronger than the suction and it pops off. Delicious. No other way to describe it. She decides to investigate the other areas of the tree, and she is rewarded for the effort. 2 limbs down, she finds a cankerworm. What follows are a Japanese beetle, a leaf miner, a tent caterpillar, a fruit worm, and a line of red termites. Finally, hours later, she has hit upon her greatest discovery, a long abandoned beehive. Inside are honey and pollen, as well as still moist larvae, trapped in hundreds of small chambers. She never has eaten anything so sweet and satisfying. The tree is a buffet of tasty treats, but it is also a trap, because as Appleblossom savors the beehive, she loses track of time, and when she finally takes notice, it's too late. The black is gone from the sky, and pink is seeping up on the horizon. The sun is only minutes from climbing out of the hills. Appleblossom argues with herself. She should try to go down the tree, or will it take too long to get to the ground? If she made it, she could squeeze behind a woodpile or find her way back to mulberry hedge. Every moment she struggles to make a decision is an opportunity lost. And then the shadows give way to a full illumination of a now terrifying world. What will become of her? She is high off the ground in a tree, but exposed to monsters, at least if they look up. And her worst fear happens. A door opens on the house and a dog is released. Appleblossom watches as the monster charges into the grassy area and heads straight for the tree. She tightens her grip into the bark and does her best not to move a muscle. Down below, she sees the hairy creature lift up his back leg and shoot Licklet right at the tree. And then the dog puts his nose to the ground and sniffs. What follows is highly unexpected, at least from Appleblossom's point of view. After a few sniffs, the dog abruptly stops his investigation of the tree and moves to a round red ball that is in the grass. He uses his mouth to pick it up. Mama Possum has taught her babies about balls. They come in all colors and sizes, but they aren't food and can't be eaten. Like most things that people make, balls are useless. But that doesn't stop the people from throwing them and hitting them with sticks and tossing them into nets. According to Mama, it's the saddest thing. For hours on end, people watch other people chase balls on their light boxes. Now Appleblossom's eyes stay on the dog with the red ball wedged in his jaw. He starts to run in circles around the yard. He gallops hard and fast, covering as much area as possible. He runs and runs and runs, and the other door of the house opens again. The dog stops running, and one of the people appears. Appleblossom holds her breath. This is a close encounter of the real kind. Right below her is one of the most dangerous monsters in the world. Appleblossom strains to get a look and sees the brown fur on top of the people's head. The creature is not big and does not look very scary. Mama Blossom has explained that the people control the dogs. Well, Mama is right, because a dog runs to the people and drops a ball at her feet. The dog takes off zigging and zagging around in a crazy way. The people shouts the words, "Columbo, come here, forget the ball." The voice is firm, but does not sound angry. The dog stops, locks eyes with the people. It's in some kind of standoff. The dog moves fast. He runs back and picks up the ball with his mouth, and then he drops it again. And then the dog sits down and sort of cries. At least that's what it sounds like to Appleblossom. A small whimper, like Appleblossom forgets that she is scared. Now she's just interested. She watches the people walk straight out into the dew-covered grass and pick up the red ball. The dog jumps to his feet and his mouth opens, and he makes a high-pitched noise filled with anticipation. The people throws the red ball. It sails through the air, then it hits a wooden fence and bounces back into a bush. The dog goes insane. He runs after the red ball at an intense speed and then dives into the shrubs head first. He emerges only seconds later with the red ball again in his mouth. His eyes are now wild and he is so excited that he runs in circles, his head held high and his long ears flapping. By this point, the people have moved back into the house. The people shout, "No more ball!" Appleblossom watches the dog slows down. She believes he is acting because he looks really heartbroken. He is a very strong actor. He finally drops the useless red ball and goes to the people. The people then leans down and pats the head of the dog, and Appleblossom can see the look of kindness. The people has to know how hopeless the dog is, and she is taking pity on him, or else rewarding his performance. And then the people return to her house, and the dog follows, but not before looking one last time with real emotion at the useless red ball. Chapter 10. Page 72, boys and girls. Antonio and Hamlet are the first possums back to the mulberry hedge. They arrive at a good hour before sunrise, and Antonio carries a very large, plump tomato in his mouth. His many teeth have punctured the red skin of the tasty treat, and juices drip from the corners of his mouth. He drops the prize with great relief as he calls out, "Appleblossom!" No one answers. Hamlet shouts using his full acting voice, which he hopes sounds commanding and filled with authority. "Appleblossom the Possum, we are back!" Still no one answers. "She is missing her entrance," says Hamlet. He and Antonio were certain that they would find her waiting just where they left her, and that she would be hungry. The two possums look all around the hedge, and Antonio even makes the bold move of scurrying out into the open to investigate a row of newly planted marigolds. But there is no sign of the littlest possum. After conducting a thorough search, they return to the hedge of the tomato. Before, the vegetable was some great kind of treasure. Now it's sagging reminder that their smallest sister is missing. Antonio rests his head in defeat against the tomato like a pillow. Hamlet takes a seat next to him, and that's where they are when Atticus and Alan and Alberta and Alicia and Ajax and Abdul and Augusta and Alfonso and Alejandro return. They have dined on the skins of avocados and the rinds of moldy cheese. They have chewed on fried fish tails and potato peels and the cores of rotten crab apples. Antonio and Hamlet listen to everyone's stories of the night, but they are both only thinking about Appleblossom. And then the sky starts to change over to day. They all squeeze together behind a rusty metal bin that is near the hedge. No people has been near it for a long time. Augusta looks around and wonders, "Where's Mama?" But no one knows. Like Appleblossom and Angie, Mama has not come back. The A babies are exhausted from their first night alone. Minutes later, only Hamlet and Antonio are awake, but hidden. When the sun comes up, Hamlet whispers to Antonio, "Mama didn't come back and to check on us." Antonio takes some time before he answers, "No, but she's probably watching us." That cheers Hamlet up. Really, you think so? Yes, I'm certain. Antonio hopes that he's convincing. Hamlet looks pleased. So it's some kind of test to see how we get along without her. Thanks for telling me, Antonio. I didn't know. Hamlet's voice is sleepier now. Maybe Appleblossom is watching with Mama. Maybe she's the lucky one. Boys and girls, that's where we stop at for today. So we'll start with chapter 11 on Monday. I hope you're enjoying this book. Good luck with the Kahoot today.